The second thing I want to talk about is finding your voice as a communicator. What does that mean to be a communicator to other people? And the first thing I guess I want to say there is that all of you have something valuable to say. You have experiences that are completely unique to you. So that means I can sit down and each one of you can come up here and say something to the group that adds value in a way that nobody else can. So the first thing I want to say that you have a voice that has value. The second thing I'm going to say is use the clay of your own life in your speaking. The American novelist Thomas Wolfe, in the preface to his novel Look Homeward Angel, says this. He says, "We are the sum of all the moments of our life. All that is ours is in them, and we cannot escape or conceal it." So use the substance of your own life in your communication, because you can always, it's relevant. If you're up there talking about something that you know, your experiences are relevant to that subject. Like, I'm not going to come up here and talk to you about aerospace engineering because I would have nothing to say, right? So use the stuff of your own life, and that will be enough. That will be enough to bring value, hopefully. And finally, leadership is a journey. It's something you learn. You do it once, and it sucks. Fine, it sucked. You learn from it, and you move on for the next time. So I just encourage you all to find ways to explore building that skill, because it is a very important one. And my book recommendation here is Talk Like TED. And this is a book that kind of, he goes through a lot of TED Talks, and he talks about the effectiveness of what these particular speakers did. So the thing I really like about it is that you can read what he says about something, and then you can go and watch the talk that he just wrote about and see it for yourself. So it's a very effective book in kind of getting into this and getting into how to craft something and how to tell a story and how to be an effective communicator and how to connect with people, right? So really great start in that way. Okay, moving on to the next one, negotiation. And this is a big one because this is a really important part of business. And it's actually an important part of relationships in general. So it's a very valuable skill to learn and to learn how to do well. So just to start, I just want to ask you as a question, what comes to your mind when you think about negotiation? What does that mean for you?
Donald Trump.
Pardon?
Donald Trump.
Oh yes, that came up last year too. I think I brought up last year, but Donald Trump, that is where a lot of our minds go when we think about this, and it's not wrong, and Donald Trump is not a bad negotiator from a certain point of view. If your view of negotiation is that you want to get exactly what you want no matter what the cost, and you'll bully people and batter people to get there, then fine, then success, right? However, I'm coming at negotiation from the perspective of being a leader, and so I'm going to define negotiation this way. Negotiation is any communication for which there is the expectation of a resulting action. And the reason that I'm not going to subscribe here to kind of the bullying method of negotiation is that as leaders, our premise should be that a successful negotiation is one where the other party would gladly do business with you again. And that's very important as leaders, because you have a legacy beyond the one transaction, that you would be doing in that case. So that's where I'm going to come from here. And then I have one more question for you. What would you say is the most important skill in negotiation?
Listening.
Yes. Who said that? Sorry. Even with you, you're not even wearing a mask. I couldn't hear what's going on. Yes, listening, and I'm gonna reframe it just a little bit, and as empathy, and going back, I'm trying to think how many years now, but the book recommendation that I'll give you later was kind of the start of empathy-based negotiation. And the reason that empathy is critical and is very simple is that people don't always say what they mean. Not necessarily on purpose even. It's just a natural. It's just a part of being human again, right? How many of you in relationships are married, or any number of you? How many of you here, oh, I'm fine. When you know perfectly well, got a shadow without that, you're well certainly not fine, right? But we navigate our relationships in different ways based on what we're feeling, vulnerability, all of these things. So in negotiation, it's the same thing. Negotiation is still a relationship. You're still talking about a transaction. It might not be, getting the dishes done, but it might be a deal, right, or a sales deal, or a license agreement, or some sort of partnership, right? So those things are all still relationships. So I'm going to break it for today down into two forms of empathy. So empathy for rational interests and empathy for emotional interests. So I'm going to start with the rational. I'm going to give you an example of my wife and I, before we got married, we were engaged, and we were talking about our honeymoon, where we wanted to go for a honeymoon. So I'm like, well, I want to go to Europe, buy a train pass and just ride the train, get on and off, just see Europe. And she's like, not a chance. I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Like, well, I want to lay on a beach in a resort and not do anything. I'm like, okay. So clearly, we're at an impasse because we have two, totally polar opinions on what we want to do. So what do we do with that, right? So and that essentially, we were negotiating at that point. That was a negotiation. So this is how we tend to view sometimes we tend to view negotiation. So there's me, there's my wife over there, and we're against each other, and we're trying to get what we want out of the problem. I want to go to Europe, buy a train pass. She wants to go to the Caribbean somewhere and sit on the beach. So what do we do with that? Before I go further, does anyone want to take a guess on what we did? I just want to see.
You went on a cruise.
Pardon?
You went on a cruise and both compromised.
I shouldn't have asked that question. Yeah, we did. We totally did. Okay, well, since he just took all of it under, I'll tell you how we got there. Thanks, Tino.
He's definitely married.
Exactly. Note to self: don't ask Timo any more questions. So the first thing to talk about is how to reframe the negotiation so that you're on the same team. And here's my PowerPoint wizardry here. If you view it as this, that it's both of us together and we're against this problem that we both see differently. How do we do that? So where the empathy comes in is where you're talking to each other and you're trying to hear the needs beyond the words, right? So my wife said, I want to sit on a beach at a resort. Okay, so that's what she said, but what does that mean? Like, what's behind that that's driving that? And I said, I want to go on a train and just ride around Europe. I said that, but what does that mean behind that? So when you dialogue back and forth, what it came down to was that I didn't really care so much about being on a train in Europe. I cared about, seeing different things and being in movement, right? Like sitting in one spot is just like death to me. I'm like, what do I do after 3 hours, right? So I need to be going places and seeing things. And for my wife, the core need it wasn't about sitting on the beach. It was about having no stress and just relaxing. So the cruise was the result that achieved what we both wanted, but in the way that we didn't initially say. So on the cruise, I was at a new port every day. We can get off and explore things, but my wife had no stress. All the meals were taken care of. You're not dealing with hotels, and you get off a train and, well, what do you do now? Find a taxi. You weren't. The stress was gone. So it wasn't necessarily that she had to be in Mexico on the beach. It just she just had to be enjoying warm weather without stress. And I didn't care if it was hot or cold. I just wanted to go places. So the cruise was the perfect answer for us. And I'm happy we didn't get married this year because that would have flopped. But so that was where we came together and used empathy to hear our rational interests. Okay. Now, when we move to empathy for emotional interest, it's a little more complicated, or it takes a little more time here. So